Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and what could possibly be the shortest lived trade war of all time. Following a 30-day extension of the tariff notice with Mexico, and now, according to breaking news reports, a 30-day halt of the tariffs against Canada. This is causing Tesla stock, many other names, and broader markets to have a really big recovery. The S&P here in after hours is up 0.57%, and Tesla stock is up 1.5%. Here in this video, I will share with you all of the latest details that you need to know what happened today with Tesla stock and, well, what to expect coming tomorrow. We did have earnings from Palantir in after hours, in which that stock is currently up about 17%, which I think is really fueling some of this risk-on AI excitement that could continue. Now we have larger earnings tomorrow morning and especially tomorrow in after hours. I will share the details with you of them here in this video. As well as that, we do have economic data coming out tomorrow morning that will be incredibly important for the Fed. So the work is cut out for us here in this video. Hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel and let's get started. So here's the news. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau says Trump will pause tariffs for 30 days, says he had a good call with Trump. Also being reported that Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau says a fentanyl czar to be appointed, Mexico cartels to be added to the list of terrorist entities. This comes after earlier news today that Trump has talked to Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, that is the Mexican president, and delayed tariffs on that country for 1 month. And since then, Mexico has agreed to deploy 10,000 troops to the border and work with the US to take out drug cartels. So effectively, within the last 48 hours, we had a trade war that started, and now what appears to be a trade war that is coming to an end. We have not heard anything on China. There's already a lot of existing tariffs on China. So this 10% tariff on China is in addition to tariffs that are already on that country. But Trump is supposed to be talking to China within the next 24 hours or so. And, well, we could get a similar deal that is struck there, which would really mean nothing changed. And if nothing changed, then everyone may have gotten too bearish and too pessimistic, well, too fast. I think this is also another important point that I'm going to make here in this video that I think should really be considered. So over the past really couple of weeks, when Trump has said something, markets have taken that as truth, okay? Whether it's Mexico, Canada, China tariffs, Trump said that there's basically nothing these countries can say. There's no negotiating these tariffs. They are here and they're going to stick. Well, within 24 hours, the tariffs are being delayed and there's negotiations taking place. And it just seems like Wall Street may start to take what Trump says not as seriously. Okay, whether that's right or wrong, it does seem like Trump's credibility is kind of being hit by some of this, okay? When he says tariffs are non-negotiable and then goes out and is negotiating tariffs, the next time something like this happens, the markets may not respond to it the same way that they did before. And maybe that's the ultimate plan. Maybe it's being designed that way to lose some credibility on Wall Street, to get some things done without upsetting the markets too much. I have no idea, but I could see this as being a positive longer term. Again, I don't know if not believing the president is a good or bad thing. It sounds like a bad thing, but I think that's where Wall Street could be headed, okay? Which could make the markets a lot less volatile to some of the crazy headlines that we have seen, especially in the past couple of weeks, which I think could be a positive thing. And especially for a stock like Tesla. You see Tesla is down over 5% today, bouncing back, now up over 2% in after hours trading. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with the tariffs. For whatever reason or another, I mean, Tesla was sold off today like they produce all of their vehicles in Mexico and Canada, which is obviously not the case. I think this is a buying opportunity. I think this is potentially one of the last buying opportunities before Tesla stock really goes parabolic. I don't think you want to bet against Tesla in a year in which they're bringing lower, cheaper priced Teslas to the mass market, the Model 2, if you will, when they're bringing FSD, unsupervised, and robo taxis to the marketplace. From that perspective, I really think the sell-off today was misinformed. I think a lot of it was likely just algorithms selling Tesla. You could really see that via the options market today. It wasn't what you would expect to see if Tesla was down 5%, right? You would expect to see some pretty bearish option activity flowing into Tesla. You would expect to see, not great numbers here. In fact, we had some decent numbers. Option activity today. Keep in mind, this is from hedge funds and institutions. This is really not including retail investors. You had 315 different trades totaling $218.3 million with a positive order value of 67%. So, that was pretty positive. Okay. And you can see for this Friday's expiration, we have open interest of 53.2% calls, 46.8% puts. For next week, numbers a little bit more bearish, and then numbers get a little bit better for February 21st. And if we look at some of the major expirations, like April 17th, you're looking at call open interest at about 58%, puts at 42%. For May, you have open interest on the call side of 70.21% and open interest on the put side of about 30%. And especially as we get closer to the actual launch of robotaxis, I do think you're going to see a big uptick in positive activity around Tesla. I don't think anyone in their right minds would want to be short in Tesla, want to be betting against Tesla as you launch the robotaxi, as you launch potentially the robotaxi in Texas, California, and as Elon said in the conference call, in many other areas this year. So for that reason, I do think this is likely a great buying opportunity. Now, we do have to see what comes out of the China negotiations. If that 10% tariff is lifted, well, I think that's going to be furthermore fuel for this recovery to continue. And the S&P is up 0.53% here in after hours. That is almost completely reversing the loss that you had today. So the situation completely flip-flopped. And as long as this, this agreement with Mexico and Canada holds, and likely an agreement with China, I would imagine Tesla's 5% drop today is going to be eaten up to the upside in the next, couple of days. Now, short sellers today did end up on net shorting about 300,000 shares of Tesla, which I think will shortly in due time be returned back. I don't think you really want to be short on Tesla. Tesla is not the stock to trade for negative implications from a trade war, right? Tesla has specifically enabled a business to operate really in any environment, as long as they have good standing with China, good standing with the US, which last we checked they did. Tesla's really not the company that's going to be affected by tariffs. And I do think that is specifically why you could see a big bounce back in Tesla here in the next couple of days, because again, you would rather short GM, for an example, which was only down about 3% today, almost half of what Tesla was down. Ford was break even on I think I typed in the wrong ticker there. Ford was down about 2% today. Those would be the companies that are really exposed to theoretical tariffs on Mexico and Canada in a subsequent trade war, not Tesla. Now, some of the sell-off with Tesla today did just have to do with big tech also selling off, which big tech is recovering here in after hours as well. Meta's up another 1%, Apple's up 0.5%, Nvidia's up 1.2%, Google's up 1%, Microsoft up 0.5%, and Amazon up almost 1%, following the stand down of the trade war that it appears we are getting here in after hours. And this is the official post on X from Justin Trudeau, Canada's prime minister. He says, I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Also in big news today that we talked about in the previous video that I think really got overlooked with all the tariff noise today, President Trump has signed an executive order to create a sovereign wealth fund. Now, this is basically the government that goes out and buys assets. Imagine if the government starts to buy stocks. I mean, I could see that as being very positive. I don't really know much of what the negatives would be there besides the government having voting power to, say yes or no to certain, agendas at specific companies. But besides that, I mean, that is probably a good thing. And again, the US is one of the few countries that does not have a sovereign wealth fund that is, more developed, right? You have the Swiss National Bank, which is essentially the sovereign wealth fund, Norwegian sovereign wealth fund. You have all Saudi wealth fund. You got all kinds of different countries out there that go participate in equity markets and, do other things as well. And I think this is a good thing for stocks. Now, here today, we did have Palantir's earnings that came in really good. Q4 revenue, $828 million, up 36% year over year and 14% quarter over quarter. US revenue up $558 million, up 52% year over year and 12% quarter over quarter. Commercial revenue up 64% year over year, 20% quarter over quarter. GAAP net income, $79 million, 10% margin. Adjusted EBITDA is a 46% margin, coming in at $380 million. Cash from operations, 56% margin, coming in at $460 million. And adjusted free cash flow coming in at $517 million, 63% margin. Why I'm highlighting Palantir is because Palantir is one of those AI names, as a lot of people have deemed. And when you have an AI name eviscerate analyst expectations, that's literally what Palantir put in their 10Q, is they eviscerated analyst estimates for revenue, which they really did. That is good for all other AI stocks, right? That is good for Tesla. That is good for Nebius. That is good for Applied Digital. That is good for NVIDIA. That is good for AMD. All of these names, in which I do think is important because we're heading into the largest portion of earnings season. With today, you had Palantir and Kyndryl and Clorox Company, NXP, Bellring, Rambius, and Fabrinet today in after hours. Tomorrow morning, you have PayPal, Spotify, Pfizer, Regeneron, PepsiCo, Ferrari, Merck, Estee Lauder, and Apollo. Tomorrow in after hours, you got some heavy hitters here. AMD, Alphabet, better known as Google, Snapchat, Chipotle, Enphase, Amgen, Electronic Arts, Lumen, and Juniper Networks. Wednesday, Uber, Walt Disney, Novo Nordisk, Toyota, Boston Scientific, and pre-market. After hours, Ford, Qualcomm, ARM, Symbotic, Viking Therapeutics, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Align, and Aflac. Thursday, Eli Lilly, Roblox, ConocoPhillips, Peloton, Hershey, Bristol Myers, Tapestry, Yum, and others. And then Thursday, you have Amazon, Elf, Cloudflare, Affirm, Fortinet, Microchip, Pinterest, MPS, and Powell. So this week, you have some massive earnings, and Palantir just blew them away, right? They just blew their earnings away. Stocks up almost 20%. That's likely a good sign for the rest of the gang that reports this week. Now, as we went over in the video earlier today, manufacturing numbers, manufacturing PMIs, across the board, beat expectations. Construction spending beat expectations. Prices paid came in a little bit higher, but not a disaster by any means. Tomorrow morning, we have JOLTS job openings, expecting about 8 million. Some estimates are about 7.8 million. Depending on where last month's number gets revised to, that could be a fall of anywhere from 100 to 300,000 job openings, which, let me tell you, you don't want to see this number come in too low, because if it comes in too low, that's a sign the economy and labor market is weakening too much. Now, if it does come in low, then that's going to prompt more conversations about the Fed cutting rates, because I think the Fed has made one thing very clear. Like every time Jerome Powell is on the podium in the last 6-12 months, he says, we do not want further weakening of the labor market. If the labor market weakens further, they will cut rates more. So in fact, a low JOLTS job openings number tomorrow could be seen as a positive for markets. We will also get, and that data comes out at 10 o'clock in the morning, we will get factory orders month over month, expecting negative 0.8%. So another sign the economy may not be as good as we think. The RCM TIPP Economic Optimism Index, expected to come in at about 53, would be quite an improvement from last month's 51.9. We also get a speech from Fed Bostic at 11 a.m. tomorrow and a speech from Fed Daily at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and then Fed Jefferson speaks at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. On Wednesday, ADP employment change will come out, expecting 150,000 jobs. Exports, imports that will influence or adjust the GDP estimate from the Atlanta Fed. The latest estimate from February 3rd, which was today, is 3.9%. I mean, the average consensus view on GDP is 2.2% for this quarter that we're currently in, Q1 of 2025. So there is a big spread between those two. We will get ISM services PMIs as well on Wednesday, and all of the subsequent smaller pieces of data that go along with that. More Fed speakers, Fed Goolsbee and Fed Bowman on Wednesday as well. On Thursday, we will be getting the initial jobless claims, challenger job cuts, some more Fed speakers, Fed Daily, Fed Waller. I believe Fed Williams also speaks on Thursday. Thursday is probably going to be the slowest day as far as data. And then Friday, you have non-farm payrolls as well as the unemployment rate and Michigan consumer sentiment for February. Now, here's a new headline coming out just now from a White House official. Quote, Trump will take steps later this month to fulfill his campaign promise to defund the Department of Education. That sounds like it could be a fake headline, and we will see what that does to markets. Largely, we're continuing to bounce in after hours. Tesla stock up roughly about 2%. So I don't think that's going to hit the headlines, but let me know what you think about that one down below in the comment section. Sentiment for Tesla stock today was bearish at 34, which again just tells me there's likely some room for more optimism to come into the stock. Again, I don't think Tesla should have been down 5%, and I do think over the next couple of days, we will likely get that back. There's nothing to suggest Tesla should have been the biggest underperformer of big tech today. It's almost like people don't understand where Tesla builds their vehicles. Like, even before these tariffs were delayed or not going to be implemented for another 30 days, people were like, oh yeah, tariffs, that's bad for Tesla. I don't know where people got that from. That's why I think it's mostly an algorithmic kind of sell-off. When volatility hits markets, Tesla is always going to sell off more than other stocks. Just, unless there's some really big news or something to offset that. So usually when you get sell-offs like this, they are bought right back up again. And you can see message volume today from retail investors was on the high side at 61. Yesterday, it was low at 40. And the participation ratio as well was high today at 56. So I don't think Tesla is doomed by any means here. I do think we're likely going to be in store for a larger bounce. And from this point, you really want to get above this downtrending trend line, which is going to be at about 408. If we can get above 408 or so, that sets us up for a larger rally and a bigger breakout into the 450s. Subsequently, they're following into the 500s and what I believe could be a $550, $600 stock by the start of Q2, which would be like April, the end of March. Those are the kind of levels that we could be sitting at. Again, as long as we don't get any more of this tariff, trade war, geopolitical tensions that continue to kind of be on the back of everyone's minds. So again, I will reiterate, like I said in the last video, if you liked Tesla in the 400s, 450s, 460s, 470s, 480s, or even where we were, as recently as January 20th, Tesla stock in the 430s or 440s, you should like this stock even more in the 390s. And this is not a recommendation, not financial advice, but I am looking on adding to my positions here at these levels. It does look like we have a double bottom going on right now. Okay, that could mean you could rally from here, come back down, form a triple bottom. That would be even more bullish. But typically when you get these double bottoms, it tends to be a positive event, because essentially what's happening is price discovery, especially after a large rally where you come down, you find some support, you bounce up again, find some support, you accumulate more buyers in this lower end range. And you can even see, you get a bit of volume spikes on these days where Tesla does dip down to this 370 level. And once you establish buyers that come in around this area, it becomes a lot easier to accumulate and then rally from there. If Tesla were going to be doomed for lower prices, well, you probably wouldn't see a double bounce at around the same levels. And especially once you broke under this trend line here, both days, the first time was on January 2nd, where you broke below 377 and you broke to about 373. You found support, you bounced. The next day you were up 8%. Today, again, you fell under 377 briefly to about 374, still not even hitting a lower low. So I will point that out. You were about $1 away from hitting a lower low today. That officially did not happen. That in and of itself is bullish. But we'll see if tomorrow could be a big day for Tesla, like it was on January 3rd, following the last time that we hit this level. And if it is a similar day, Tesla would rally 8% tomorrow, that is, which could put Tesla stock back into the 415 range, which could definitely be in the cards over the next couple of days. So what I'm seeing here, pretty good. If you get above this downtrending trend line here, it's going to look even better. But again, just to conclude this, I think the sell-off today was just asinine. Like you're really going to sell Tesla because of a trade war and tariff concerns when there's many more companies that have a larger impact, right, to a trade war. Tesla is like not even close. Tesla's in like the bottom percentage or bottom quartile of companies that are affected by potential tariffs because they manufacture and sell vehicles that they make locally, right? They sell Teslas in the US when they make them in the US. They sell Teslas in China when they make them in China. Same is true largely for Europe. So I do think this was way overblown and out of context for Tesla. But again, that's what happens when you have a high beta stock, a high volatility stock like Tesla, and algorithmic trading programs and quants that control, 80% of the daily volume. When they decide to short a stock because of one reason or another, it does have a large impact, regardless if it makes sense or not. Usually when it doesn't make sense why Tesla's selling off, that's normally ripe for an upward reversal or, flip-flop for that matter. So let me know what you guys think about this information down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.